Hello, girls. Today we will be discussing Vygotsky's social development theory. This is from Unit 2 of Psychology of Education, topic number 4. If you go through your syllabus, you will find that topic number 4 is written as Bandura's social learning theory and Vygotsky's social development theory. So we have already discussed Bandura's theory in an earlier class or earlier lecture rather. So today let's see what Vygotsky's social development theory is all about. Lev Vygotsky was a Russian developmental psychologist who was also a very prominent social constructivist. Now, who are social constructivists? They are the psychologists who believe that learning is a process of interaction, particularly within the social setting. Learning takes place because of the social interactions. So, Vygotsky believed very much in the concept of social interaction because as a social constructivist, he highlighted the importance of the community and the exchanges that take place between the members of the community in helping children understand or assign meaning to their experiences. If you remember Piaget, we had discussed him earlier in connection with cognitive development. Now, Vygotsky was unlike Piaget in his idea about when development takes place. Now, Piaget had said that first cognitive development takes place and that leads to learning. But Vygotsky said just the opposite. He believed that it was social learning that leads to development. What Vygotsky said was that there are two paths that lead to cognitive development. One is the basic biological process and the other is the higher psychological process, which is essentially socio-cultural in nature. So children's behavior is what results from the intertwining of these two paths. So the developmental processes that a person undergoes is responsible for transforming these elementary biological processes into higher psychological functioning such as speech. For example, if we look at brain development, now brain development is basically a biological process and it forms the physiological basis for the development of what is called egocentric or external speech in children, which again later on is transformed into inner speech. So the social and cultural processes that a child undergoes are responsible for shaping his cognitive development according to Vygotsky. The cultural knowledge that children acquire is because of the social exchanges, or you can call it the conversations with other people that children indulge in. Now, as a result of these social interactions, children develop the cultural knowledge of, let's say, the expected behavior norms, what one is supposed to do, what one is not supposed to do, even, like, say, the history of, say, the country or various other subjects. All these are cultural knowledges which come about through social exchanges. Now, after or as a process of learning, the child or the children, they develop this cultural knowledge and they connect it to other kinds of knowledge which they have perhaps already acquired through the mechanism called inner speech. Now, inner speech is something that we are all of us familiar with. When we talk to ourselves, we are giving ourselves instructions in our mind, or generally just telling ourselves, what to do, what not to do, what we should be feeling, or what we are feeling. All that is our inner speech. And just a little while back, I had mentioned that external speech gets transformed into inner speech. So, how does this take place? It takes place because of a process called internalization, where the child learns to internalize the external speech into the inner speech. Vygotsky considered the internalization process to be a very, very important component of a person's learning. Without internalization, a person would not be able to carry on with his learning. Language was another aspect that Vygotsky focused on, and he said that language plays a very powerful role in shaping our thought. Now, according to Vygotsky, there are 4 stages of language development. What are they? It starts with the pre-intellectual speech, which is what we see in very small infants. They cry, they make noises, what we call babbling or cooing. So these are actually meaningless. But this is the first stage of language development, which Vygotsky termed as pre-intellectual speech. Now, this is followed by naive psychology, where the child's language becomes slightly more sophisticated, and the child learns to assign, let's say, names to various objects. This is again followed by egocentric speech. Now, egocentric speech is when a child talks aloud, and he does this even when other people are not around. I'm sure all of us have seen, young children very busy in themselves, playing with themselves, talking to themselves. Even if no one is present, they like to talk to themselves. Maybe playing a game or telling a story. So that is egocentric speech. And finally, this is followed by inner speech. Now, first the external speech or the egocentric speech appears, and from there, inner speech develops. Now, Vygotsky was a very big, you can say, advocate of the importance of inner speech in the process of development, and it is something that results from the merging of thought and language. Vygotsky believed that thought and language were 2 different processes, but as the child grows, these 2 different processes merge into one and is transformed into inner speech. So, the whole idea of cognitive development, according to Vygotsky, was because the child is able to internalize language from external speech to inner speech. That gives rise to thinking, and that is a very important component of cognitive development, and this cannot take place without the internalization of language. He also emphasized the role of cooperative or collaborative dialogue. Now, this cooperative or collaborative dialogue takes place between usually 2 people, where one is more skillful. It can be a teacher and a student, or it can be 2 children of maybe differing ages. And in this kind of learning, one provides the kind of behavior or the instructions to the other person, to the other child. And because of this, the child learns. So this is the collaborative or cooperative dialogue, which Vygotsky was very, you can say, thought a lot of. So this cognitive development, ultimately, the crux of his theory is that it takes place from social interactions. Now, the social interactions that take place within the zone of proximal development. Now, what exactly is this zone of proximal development? It's a very important component of Vygotsky's theory. So, the zone of proximal development is that concept that relates to the difference between what a child can achieve independently and what he can achieve with guidance and encouragement. I think, I don't need to say this actually. All of us, are capable of doing certain things. Now, this is perhaps a function of age. As we grow older, our abilities keep maturing. But then we come to a place where, we are capable of learning something on our own. And there is also, you can say, the next stage or the next step is when we are able to learn with the help of others. Let's take a look at this chart. Here, if you look at the inner circle, the blue circle, that is the circle that depicts what a person can learn independently without taking the help of anyone else. Something that one is able to achieve on one's own. Now, the second circle is the zone of proximal development. What I can learn with help. And if you notice, I have mentioned that this is comprised of knowledgeable others as well as technology and tools. So, the zone of proximal development operates not only with the help of other people but also with the help of technology. Just to give you a small example about how a person learns in the zone of proximal development, if we take a small girl, a young girl, and give her her first jigsaw puzzle. Alright, so we give her a jigsaw puzzle and ask her to solve it. So if the young girl is left on her own, it may be that she is unable to really make much headway because she has never done this before. So she is quite, let's say, confused about what are the steps to be taken, what she has to do. So she spends a lot of time trying to, put various pieces together, but without any success. Now, the scenario changes when, let's say, a parent comes in and starts instructing the child as to how to go about it. The parent will tell the child that you start by first looking for the corner pieces. When you take the corner pieces and put them together, you are able to get a structure, and from there you start finding the other pieces. And perhaps the parent also demonstrates how this is to be done. So once this is done, this is what we call guided learning. Once this is done, the child is able to complete the puzzle very quickly. So you see the difference between what the child could learn on her own or could do on her own and what she could do with that guided learning in the zone of proximal development. So usually in the zone of proximal development, we have another person or other people who are more knowledgeable, who are able to give that guided learning. But it does not always have to be a person. It can also be a tool. It can be any kind of technology which we take recourse to in order to learn something. And I think particularly in these times, because we are living in a very technology enabled world, there is so much that we can access, there is so much that we can learn with the help of technology, with the help of various tools, all the various apps that we use to learn. It can be a language that we want to learn or a different program that we are trying to learn. Any kind of help that we get within our zone of proximal development is what leads to better learning. So what Vygotsky said was that in the zone of proximal development, it is essential that sensitive guidance, sensitive instruction should be given, because this is where the child learns best and the child is allowed to develop skills when this guided learning is given in the zone of proximal development. And once the child develops those skills, the child is able to use those skills on his own, and also in let's say it leads to development of higher mental functions. If you look at the example of the girl with the jigsaw puzzle, not only did the girl learn how to solve the puzzle, but it definitely helped her psychological processes, such as so problem solving ability or reasoning ability, logical reasoning. All these develop as a consequence of that guided learning. Again, interaction with peers. Vygotsky was a very big advocate of social interaction, as I had mentioned right at the beginning. And particularly, this interaction not only with, say, others who are much older, like teachers or parents, but also interaction with peers. This is a very good way of developing skills and strategies in young children. So, like for example, let's say two children, they talk amongst themselves about their siblings, what happens in their houses, how the brother is, what the sister is like, the kind of interactions that take place between them, the kind of experiences that they have. And as a result of listening to each other, conversing with each other, each of these two children learn perhaps certain skills or strategies which they will implement in their own relationships with their own siblings. So when guided learning takes place within the zone of proximal development, it leads to a better performance than working alone. I'm sure that if we want to do something on our own, we will probably be able to do it, but it may take us a lot of time, it may take us a lot of effort. All that can be minimized when guided learning takes place within the zone of proximal development. Now, a related concept is scaffolding. Scaffolding, which means general assistance. I'm sure all of us have seen buildings under construction. They generally have a scaffold all around it. So a scaffold in terms of learning is a form of support provided by a person. The initial help, the initial, let's say, helping person that helps the students to achieve their goals. For example, in a classroom, it may be that the children are assigned, let's say, certain tasks. It may be a project which they are required to do. So initially, it is the teacher who will guide them, who will give them that support by explaining to them what is expected of them, what they are supposed to do, maybe outlining the different steps that are to be taken. So once this initial help is given, the children start to try and complete the task on their own. Now, the scaffold or the support is not something that is permanent. The teacher is not there, for example, to help with each and every step of their task. He or she just sets them off on their task, gives them the initial guidelines, and then when he sees that the children are learning, or the children have understood and are doing what is required of them quite well, he steps back. And consequently, maybe in future projects which the children are required to undertake or to do, the teacher would no longer take on the same role. So a scaffold is needed to help or to give support to the initial learning which a child undergoes. Now, Vygotsky believed that instruction is effective only when it proceeds ahead of development. So it is instruction that leads to development. This is something which is, contrary to the views of Piaget, because Piaget believed that it was development that leads to learning, all kinds of learning. But here it is like you are taught something and then you develop. That is what Vygotsky believed. And he greatly believed in the role of teaching to awaken those functions which are maturing and are in the zone of proximal development. I hope all of you are familiar with the concept of maturation, which is, you can call it very briefly, automatic growth and development. We will develop certain abilities as we grow older. It does not matter what background we come from, or which environment we belong to. Certain abilities are manifested at certain, you can say, times in our lives. Like take for example the ability of abstract thinking. Now this is an ability which is definitely not present in small children. So when a child is in the pubertal stage, or the initial stages of adolescence, that is when the ability of abstract thinking is about to manifest. Now at this point of time, if the young person is given instructions or is given let's say guidance as to how to think in an abstract manner, abstract concepts are explained to him, when this happens, then the manifestation of that abstract thinking ability becomes much faster, much speedier. So this happens as a result of teaching. And although teaching and learning are not the same processes, yet they are very, very important in stimulating developmental processes. See, development will take place, but if we are talking about speeding up the developmental process, if we are talking about enhancing the developmental process, then we have to take recourse to teaching and instruction. This is what Vygotsky believed very much in. He also spoke a lot about collaborative learning. Now, collaborative learning is when, it's a kind of group learning where, let's say, 3 or 4 members get together, or it can even be 2 people, just 2 persons involved, and they are of different abilities and they work together on something. So in the process, what happens is that the ones who are more advanced, the ones who have, let's say, superior ability, are able to give that guided learning to the less advanced ones within their zone of proximal development. Just to give an example, I think you must be familiar with the concept of peer tutoring. Now, peer tutoring is something that takes place in many schools where the very bright students in a particular class are given the responsibility or the task of helping his less, let's say, bright classmates. So somebody who is slow, very slow in learning. So that particular student is assigned to another student who has superior ability, and so in the process the superior child is able to help the one who is not perhaps so not so advanced in his learning, and this can lead to a very effective form of learning. So these are the important points that Vygotsky talked about in his theory. Please remember, he emphasized the role of social interaction. He believed that social interaction was the key to all kinds of development, particularly cognitive development. And he talked about how inner speech is very important to bring about, further cognitive development. Internalization process, that was another thing that he spoke about. And of course, he talked a lot about the zone of proximal development and about how guided learning within the zone of proximal development leads to a very effective kind of learning. So This is all about Vygotsky's social development theory. Thank you so much.